before we begin for CP3, a quick introduction that you all have given. Thanks for that, and good to hear everyone's plans around two papers and everyone being very sure of their plans. Either post results, that's completely fine. Results are coming in 1 month only. So good to hear that. And most of you guys are already working or are interning, so even that's better considering the job markets and everything. And if at all you are still looking out, you can reach out to me. A quick intro about myself. I am Sunny Savla. I'm a qualified actuary and FRM. In fact, I hold the title for India's youngest qualified actuary, having cleared my papers at the age of 22. I have been working in the industry for over 5 years now. I am a non-traditional actuary. So basically, I'm working in the banking and risk side, banking and investment side. So my journey started with Deloitte, 3 years, then PwC 1.5 years, and then now I am into Nomura. Nomura is a Japanese global investment bank, just like how your Citibank or JP Morgan Chase are. So I'm working there as a quant model developer. So it's majorly into model development, which means all the stochastic models, interest rate models, market risk models, derivative pricing models, the creation of them, the stress testing models, writing codes for them, and developing the mathematical statistical logic for them is what I do. So yeah, that's a brief about my professional journey. As for the Actuarial Academy, this attempt, the academy has completed 5 years, and I have been associated for more than 4 years right now. So this would be for CP3. It would be my fifth attempt teaching, but overall, like I mentioned, it's more than 4 years, so more than eighth, ninth attempt of teaching multiple papers. I do teach CB1, the accounts one, CB2, the economics one, and CP1, CP2, CP3. So major specialty lies around in the CP papers. The reason being, these are the papers where students sometimes feel that they don't have anyone to point their mistakes to. These papers do not have a perfect answer, as you would have seen it, let's say, or CS or CM papers where there is a final numerical answer, there is a formula, there are steps which are defined and no one can change that. Okay, but out here, these are all subjective papers where students might not, directly be able to see their mistakes, and it's very difficult to check your current improvement and how do you improve upon it. So these are the papers that I cover, and I also cover SP5. So even that's there, SP5, me and Viraj both take it, but that is very specific to investment and finance. A lot of people here might be appearing SP2, or I think the SP7, 8, which are around general insurance. So that's separate. Okay. So now a little bit about CP3 communications. One thing I'll say about this particular paper is the papers CP2, CP3, and even CP1. CP1 is the biggest paper overall, but they are not there to teach you new concepts. They are not there to, make you learn about new areas or new formulas, new definitions. No, no, no. You will not be learning anything new, any new conceptual area from this. The reason being, if at all you would have done it for all your CS, CM, CB papers. That's it. These are all practical application based papers where you will use your knowledge from the other papers. And even if you don't have other papers, it's fine. You will use the knowledge present in the question paper and accordingly apply your skills. So these papers, CP2, CP3, I like it a lot because they are completely skill based paper, and they transform the way you think and the way you model Excel and then just document stuff. So focus a lot more upon documentation, which are definitely very helpful during your workplaces. Okay, so these papers are definitely, no one can give a perfect attempt. No one can get even 70, 75. Okay, people struggle to reach 60, 65 and just borderline passing, which is completely fine, but these are not the papers where you'll be perfect. So our goal out here, as you can see the quote below, it's strive for progress, not perfection. Over the period, I will need to see how you are writing currently. Tomorrow if I tell you to write a CP3 paper, to write a particular letter or a report or something, it will be all over the place, right? There won't be any format, there won't be any grammatical links or nothing like that. So what we will strive for is that over the time, how can we improve this and how can we see our writing skills grow? So that is something that I'll be supporting you in. And For that, we will have multiple lectures, sessions, and multiple notes, multiple things available to you, which can help you in the right direction. Because firstly, I'll explain you the exam format. So what is this format as such? See, personally, why do I like CP2, CP3 papers, and why do I find them challenging compared to all other papers? Even CP papers and SP papers are slightly easier. The reason being they have many questions in it, right? Your CSCM papers have 8 questions, 10 questions. Even your Excel and R papers, Excel R papers have 3 questions, sometimes even 4 questions. The more the questions, your 100 marks get distributed amongst them. And worst case, you are not able to, attempt one question. But other questions will not be similar, right? They might be from different chapters, different areas. One chapter you don't know or you are weak with, it's okay. But remaining 3 questions you will attempt and try to get maximum marks. CP2 and CP3, these papers are with a single question based paper. Okay, out here there will be a single question for 80 marks. What does that mean? That you will be writing a report or a letter. This is a communications based paper. So the question will come where you will be need to writing a report or a letter or email or a newspaper article, many things. Okay, so you'll be writing those out, and for that creative writing itself, the entire writing, there are 80 marks allocated. So if at all you do not understand the question, you do not understand the purpose of the letter or report, everything falls apart. Okay. Similarly, there is 20 marks worth of reflective questions. They have increased it to 20 marks, but prior to 2000, I think 2021 or 22, prior to 2022, this was 90-10, which means 90 marks worth of creative writing and 10 marks worth of those other questions, which was again much more trickier. Now, good that they have distributed it. Okay. And the paper, is 3 or 5 minutes, not your 3 or 20 minutes paper, 15 minutes. I don't know why they have removed it, but it's okay. This has been there since long. It's not like it is a recent change, but it's 3 or 5 minutes only. And for this paper, you have to read a lot of data, okay, a lot of materials, and there is so much material that even 5 days prior to the exam, suppose out here the exam date is 24th of September. So on 20th of September, okay, 20th of September, that's correct. You will get an additional materials paper, okay, an additional materials PDF of 4 pages, 5 pages, where they'll give you a huge info about many things. I'll give you a complete example of the paper and how it works around. But yeah, so this is like given 5 days prior, and accordingly the exam paper will have further data and it will revolve around this particular additional report. So now I'll give you an example. Suppose 5 days prior, you get a additional material stating that you are a life insurance company and you price your products, and there are pricing approach. The whole entire pricing approach is given, that how do you model the probability of death, how you apply the life tables, so on so forth, how do you use all the calculations, and how many expenses that you load into your premium, and your premium history. Let's say for a 25-year-old or 30-year-old, your premiums for the same person over the last 5 years. So tomorrow, let's say if I go and get my policy, I'll be charged, let's say, a 10,000 rupees. Okay. But same thing, if I did last year, I would be charged, let's say, 9,500, so on and so forth. So a premium overall, this thing, then the number of policy holders that they have, and many data. Okay. And a lot more data around the pricing approach. You don't have to worry, guys. See, firstly, remove that myth of people. I think everyone is working, that's good. But remove that myth or ideology that you need to be working in order to appear this paper. Or no, it's completely wrong. It's not like working will help you, directly in the paper. By working, there are some people who, alongside, their working, they also make reports or they also write some, emails, etc. So automatically they know slightly better on how do you write the emails. That's it. That's the only difference. They are not practicing, these things again and again in their workplace. So don't have that myth that, oh, I am not working, how should I appear this paper? No, that's completely wrong. Even without working, you can appear. Okay, so continue with my example. So all these example pricing approach, don't worry, you don't have to remember any formulas, any definitions. They will explain you everything. So sometimes, you might feel that, oh, CM1, I have forgotten what is QX, what is DX, and how this life table works, and how, let's say, pricing works that was there in CM1. You would have forgotten. It's completely fine. They'll give you everything. Okay, even they'll give you annuity formula, that A dot dot N is equal to, they'll give you everything in this additional materials. Okay, so now you know entire pricing approach, the premium history, the profits of the company, lot many things. Now after 5 days, the exam day comes in. In the question paper, they'll ask you a question stating that you are a consultant. Basically, you as a student are a consultant working for ABC company, and ABC company is giving a consultancy services to this particular life insurance company. Now, there is someone, or maybe you are a person in the pricing team of this life insurance company, and now there was a news article which was published against your company stating that your company is doing discrimination in premiums. What does it mean is that a person who has higher income, example, is getting lower premium, or let's say females are getting higher premium compared to males, example. Okay, this is just a framed up example, but in the papers, that when you start looking at the papers, you will see that, you will find heavy similarities. I'm not giving you the entire paper right now, but yeah. So in that question paper, they will say that some people have found that you are doing price discrimination, which means that you are randomly charging very high prices to, let's say, people who are not based in urban cities, or you are charging very high prices to, women, something like that. And they'll give you a proof as well. They'll give you further data that how your premiums have just risen and how your profits have been just risen so much in the last few years just because of the discrimination. Now, in the question paper itself, the board of directors will tell you that no, this is something which is very bad. This can harm the reputation of the company. Now, the board of directors have assigned you as a person, as an actuary, to write a newspaper report which will go in the newspaper, whereby your side of things, which is your justification around each and everything, would come in. Okay, so they will give you points. Okay, they will not leave it entirely blank to you. They will tell you that write about the way we calculate the premiums. That's the first thing. Then write about let's say write about the premium growth rates that has happened. And they will also have, let's say, in the question paper, they will have further data. They will have data around the industry. Okay, so write about the fact that look at industry premium growth and look at our growth. We are more or less in line, and every company is doing this. And third thing is that write something about the ethical constraints, that why do we not do this and why this is completely wrong. Why females are charged more because of their mortality or things like that. Why rural areas, urban areas are differentiated. Everything will be there in the pricing approach. So now out here, you have to collect data from everything. So they will give you, they gave you the 3-4 head points over which you have to talk about in your entire paper. So now you have to decide the title of the paper, the logical order of points, that firstly, what should I start with? Firstly, let's say directly, should I start with pricing? No, firstly, maybe I'll start with why the claims made are, claim in the sense that females are charged higher compared to male, why that is completely wrong. Okay, so I'll talk about that. Then I'll give you examples about how my premiums are being computed. So in this case, how my approach actually goes around. And then at the very end, I'll say that, okay, look at this comparison between industry and my premium rates. More or less, they are same. And you can also mention that there is regulatory intervention. Okay, see, firstly, CP3 is a paper where, and even CP2 and even CP1, okay, where you don't have to use any of your brains in extra of what is there in the question paper. You can never write something from your own knowledge, that you cannot write, oh, thereby the government or the regulators have come out with IFRS 17 or Solvency 2. No, please do not showcase any of your knowledge. Whatever is there in the question paper, please use that only. Do not, link it to the current economy, link it to your current company, nothing like that, no extra info. Okay, but in assume in the question paper they have also given statements around that regulators will review our premium pricing approaches and this and that, and we get approvals from them. Okay, so that is something then you can use it, that these premium pricing approach are not just simply internally developed by us, they are also being reviewed by the regulator of the country, and they are approved. So okay, so how are you now justifying the entire reason behind that, why you as a company have not done injustice? Your tone of the paper needs to be like that. You have to explain. Now you're writing in a news article, which means everyone will read. Okay, so the main challenge for you is that how do I translate that complicated pricing approach with the formula with so many numbers into such a simpler, let's say a chart, a diagram, a simple paragraph which everyone can understand. Okay, if I use words like mortality, morbidity, life tables, probability of death is still fine, but life tables and all these things, do you think anyone reading the newspaper will be able to understand that? Completely no. So you have to ensure that everything which is there in the additional materials and the question papers are for you who is an actuary, but your audiences are not your actuaries, right? So you have to translate in the sense, write in English only, but translate the complicated part around the paper into simpler languages. Okay, simpler languages which are easy to understand by our audiences. Only use the words like inflation, that's fine, you can use it. You don't have to explain inflation to people. Okay, because inflation is rising, let's say expenses are rising, that's why premiums are rising, example, if that is the reason. Okay, but only if that is mentioned in the question paper or the additional material. You cannot yourself say that, oh, now in today's 2026 inflation is rising, that's why premium. No, 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 no additional information to be used. Okay, and there'll be a lot more extra information about the historical profits of the company, about the number of policies that the company is selling. Do you think that information is relevant? If at all I have to explain to the people that my pricing approach is fair, okay, do you think that I will put a chart of the number of policies that I sold as a justification? Definitely not. It's just an extra data to confuse you. If I'm writing it to shareholders, do I need to show historical profits? No, they already know it, right? Current year's profit, maybe with breakdown, is something I can show. So there are so many things that will be there as an additional extra information which will be there just to confuse you. Okay, so you have to pick point on what do you write, what should you skip completely, what is relevant information, what is extra information. So very, very subjective element. So how can you master this? The biggest way in which you can master things like this is just keep writing more and more papers. Okay, so I will say that this is our timelines. These are our timelines that our lectures and all our materials will be completed by mid of July. Post your results. I think one more week, post your results, everything will be done. Okay, by July end we will also have lectures, live lectures around that. I am solving a complete paper, I am reading a paper in front of you, and I am solving it end to end. What will be my approach and how should I proceed ahead? So everything will be covered like that, so that you also know that okay, this should be the approach. Firstly, read this, mark these things out, and how you will end to end follow it. Then from August onwards, you have to start writing or start solving one to two papers per week. Okay, slow targets. Per week, I need you to solve one to two papers. We need to be solving more than 15 papers before we go to the exam. 15 papers in the sense, 7 years. 7 years of past papers, that makes it still 14. And there are 3 of my mock tests. Okay, so that makes it, something about 15, 16, minimum 15 papers. So that is what you need to solve. 4 papers prior to 2019, you can read them and cover them. But all papers should be solved after 2019. You have to sit at a place and write it. And what is the unique thing about CP2, CP3 is that since the portion is very less, okay, that portion is very less, and there are many lesser things to cover. The major important thing is you writing papers in different exam conditions. It means there is sometimes a insurance related question, sometimes the question is related to some statistics, sometimes the question is completely different, related to something else altogether. Sometimes it's investment, stock market, any of these areas, anything can come. So now you are practicing all those questions, weird questions. Your audience can be different. Sometimes it can be, common public. who are the most basic people, right? They are just barely financially literate. So your whole writing skills should be according to them. Sometimes there are shareholders. Now, shareholders, if they have invested in your company, they know the basic working of your company. So they are slightly more advanced. Your writing should be like that. Sometimes it is medical underwriting team that you are a pricing actuary and you have to write an email to underwriting team. Sometimes it is writing an email to board of directors. Even board of directors are, running the company. They don't understand statistics and mathematics and all those, difficult areas. They don't understand formulae. So you have to simplify each and everything and write it to them as well. And very, very few times you are, asked to write it to another actuary. So if there is another actuary, they are as smart as you, then in that case, you can easily write, the way you normally write. And, you can ignore about the challenges. You can write few jargons. You can write joint distribution. You can write profit testing. You can write, all these complicated words, and it will be still fine because your audience is another actuary only, right? So your audiences keep on changing and challenges keep on changing again and again. So that is there. And that's the reason I want everyone to just sit for 3 hours, 5 minutes, twice a week, which means you are able to write two papers per week. And accordingly, we will be trying to complete more than 15 papers. All these past paper scripts will be personally reviewed by me. I'll read through the script and I'll provide comments. I'll read it like I'm an individual reader. I will not read the question paper. Okay. As an individual reader, if at all, see, if you're reading newspaper, do you think they ask you that, okay, read this first and then read the newspaper? No. If I read the newspaper, I will have a very, very good title or headlines, and I'll have a very good introduction that will give me entire background that I need to know. And if I want to read more, I can go to some another page and I can read more, right? But it won't be the case that, it is all over the place. Why is this report written? Whom is it written against or something like that? No, there'll be clarity all over the place. This is what you have to ensure, and there'll be properly arranged sections. So this is what you need to do, and accordingly I'll review, I'll provide comments that, okay, ensure you use these many letters in the particular paper. You should not be more than 700, 750 words. Neither it should be less than 500 words. Okay, so I'll give you all these things. Grammatical mistakes, I think Word can help you to correct. But yeah, what are jargons? What are not jargons? We'll discuss each and everything around the same. Then yeah, papers prior to 2019 can be read, and post August weekend, the exam is on September 24th, which means it's still the third week, after the third week of September. Okay, so we have ample time in September as well, that in September we will plan two of our mocks, and maybe in August end we will plan one more of our mock tests. So three mocks to cover, and those mocks will be properly checked and properly given marks. Okay, but IFOA papers, I don't check it, I just give comments, improvement comments. Okay, so this is the process that over the last 1.5 months, we will only focus on writing papers and seeing that how can we improve in each and every paper. So now compare it with people. So see, some people take these papers very lightly. Okay, so they start studying after July, and after July, they will just simply sit and read the course notes. Course notes are very small. Reading it will be very easy. And then they randomly read papers. They will read papers, and at the end, reading papers, it's just English, right? This is just all English. So while reading the paper, you're like, okay, title is there, this is there, this is easy. Okay, they have made a chart, everything is easy. You will read 5, 10 papers, maybe you will solve 1, 2 and appear the exam, and this leads to failures. Okay, the pass rates are still 40%. It means out of 1,000 people, only 400 pass, 600 fail, just because of this overconfidence. So we will ensure that, the exam is writing this report from a blank sheet of paper. So we will practice that. The exam is not about who can read the more. Some people will say, I read 20 years of paper. It's okay. Exam is about writing. You have never practiced writing, and when you start writing from blank sheet of paper, you get confused. This is your creative element. How creative can you write your title? How creative your section headers can be? Multiple things. Okay. So while reading, it will seem everything is easy, but when you actually solve it, things will be tougher. Okay, so that's the part that we'll need to focus. CP2, CP3 papers are always solving intensive. There are no revision note booklets. There are no past paper questions that we need to solve separately. It is the entire past papers that we have to solve. Okay. Quick check about our approach. So how will our approach be? There are lectures, specifically focused, and these are already recorded as well, but we will have live lectures too around these similar areas. So these include, usage of appropriate language. So now there are, specific restrictions around emoji, not emojis, I'll say emotions and exclamatory language. Okay, so I cannot say that apologies, we made a mistake in pricing. There are papers, okay, there are papers where you have made a mistake in the pricing model, and now you are writing to the regulator stating that, oh, my bad, we have made a mistake. But definitely not in my bad, we have made a mistake. You have to explain it in such a way, justify it in such a way, and then write what measures you are doing so that this mistake does not happen. So the tone of the paper, the appropriate language needs to come out that way. Okay, there are many do's and don'ts in this, that don't use this language, don't use these particular words. They will cover all of that, that these words definitely will lead to just a wrong impression. Okay, communicating numerical information. So like an example that I gave you, if at all there are number of policies sold in different years. Okay, I say that in 2020 I sold 20,000 policies, then 25,000, then 28,000, then 35,000, then 40,000. Okay, looking at these numbers, people will plot the data and make a line chart out of it. Guys, this is a discrete data. Number of policies in each year are discrete. The profits, for each year are discrete data. They are not continuous. Share price, on the other hand, if you say 100, 120, they are continuous, which means there are links between both the years. Okay, it's a time series data. At that, in share price, you don't have to plot bar chart that the share price was 100, then 120, a bigger bar, then 115. No, that's incorrect. In share price, in portfolio growth, in, let's say, the accumulated claim amount, so on and so forth, it will be a line chart. But in case of number of policies, or number of claims, it will be bar charts only, because these are discrete numbers. So very simple thing. Okay, people might have not thought about it. They randomly look at data, they randomly plot it. Okay, and some numerical info does not need to be plotted as well. That is very extra. So how do you remove that extra info? Sometimes some information can be written in 1 2 statements, that profits have almost doubled up. Okay, writing that is much better compared to writing some weird numbers that profits have grown by 99.5%, and all of these numbers are useless. Okay, you have to tailor that. Okay, whenever it is, let's say, 99.5, or whenever it is 9.75, you can say almost 10%, right? This is much easier compared to writing 9.7236%. What is all this? Okay, so we'll be looking at such different approaches of do's and don'ts everywhere. And CP3 is a paper where you don't have to focus on scoring marks. Okay, the all papers you'll be like, I wrote this question correct, I'll get 8 marks. I wrote this correct, I get 7 marks. That's how you build up to 60. In CP3 it's the opposite. You have to focus on which all things should I do so that I avoid losing marks. If I wrote a good title, I'll say, oh, and good format of the paper, I'll say, oh, I avoided losing 5 marks. If I made a proper chart, if I presented all the data numbers properly, I will say, oh, I avoided losing 5 marks. So the whole paper is all about how you can avoid losing marks in different areas. Okay, it's not like where can you gain marks. That's the opposite way. Then selecting and sequencing content. How can you select? Like I said, there'll be too much content given to you. So how can you select and shortlist it? Then expanding the plan. How do you write it and then expand it into a report? Then summary and conclusion. Very, very important. Same for introduction. Your introduction should cover the entire purpose of the paper as well as a conclusion as well. Okay. So if at all I am saying that, okay, I made a mistake in pricing, and I am saying to the regulator that, sorry, I made a mistake in pricing. In the overall introduction only, you can say that this was the product because of which this issue happened, and that's why we are writing this letter to you. And in the introduction itself, the last 2 3 lines can be that because of this mistake, the impact that we are estimating is roughly around these many $1 million. However, now from now on, we have created a separate team who looks after the validation of these and blah blah blah, who will double check everything, so that this does not not happen further. All this in introduction, okay, all this. So people sometimes only write that, okay, I'm doing this, and introduction is done. No, in your introduction, you have to write what is the purpose of the paper, who are you, why are you writing this paper, as well as 1-2 lines around the conclusion. Look at any newspaper and open a news item, and in that news item, you will also see slight bit conclusion that, okay, this is a news article, but what happened afterwards, what is currently happening, you will see 1-2 lines around that as well. And now you have to read more, you go into the rest of the paper where there is a section 1, section 2, section 3 conclusion. Okay, so writing about this introduction, writing these conclusions, very tricky. People make mistakes, and it's okay to make mistakes, because over the time I will point it out to you multiple times and you will see yourself improving in these things. Okay. Then different formats covering, that's very simple, different templates and what all things should be included there. Taking care of jargon. What is a jargon? Jargon is a complicated word, right? Like I said, joint distribution. But inflation is a jargon? Definitely not. Economic growth is a jargon? Definitely not. Okay. For a medical team, the word underwriting, is it a jargon? Definitely not. Okay. So, but underwriting for common people, it can be a jargon. So right now, this is what we need to focus on, that depending upon audience, what are the words which can be jargon, cannot be jargon. So you have to think from those people perspective. Maybe link it to your, let's say, I'm not sure, this is an example, link it to your parents, link it to your young brothers or sisters who are, young or who do not have, maybe link it to your friend who is from science background. They have no knowledge about, no major knowledge about finance. They know what is inflation, economic growth, but will you directly talk to them and say that, okay, this is underwriting, this is expense loading, and all of these things? Maybe not, right? You have to just, simplify, tone it down. Similarly, this is how you need to take care of your jargons. We will look at many examples of jargons, what are for sure jargons, what are maybe jargons, how do we identify in the question paper, etc. Then there are reflective questions, those 20 marks that we saw in reflective, sorry, 20 marks that we saw in reflective questions. There are specific question types. 20 to 25 different question types are there, which commonly get repeated in the papers. So we have provided those questions and even written the best possible answers, which you can simply read and then utilize it. So this 20 marks will be a bonus for you, where out of this 20, you can score minimum 15. Okay. And the exam pattern, exam marks distribution, examiners are, I'll say, very, very open in this particular CP3 paper, whereby they have, released their examiners marking system. Okay. And more or less it remains constant. So we have a proper Excel and proper areas. Okay, look at this. These are the areas where you can, maybe definitely not lose marks. These areas, there are chances that these are subjective, you might lose marks. It's okay. So we will look at such multiple, there are 30 to 35 areas, okay, where examination marks are distributed. We will look at them one by one. We will see where we can score marks, where we can, let's say, be okay to lose some marks, so on and so forth, right? And finally, mistakes to avoid. It's everything around mistakes to avoid. We will make a proper do's and don'ts sheet around what to do, what not to do, what mistakes to avoid, so on and so forth, so that we can score the best possible marks in this paper. Fair enough. And like I said, every question is new. Every case is new. Okay. So nothing will repeat, no particular pattern, nothing like that. Okay. So that's a very tricky paper. And yeah, it's a very small paper. That's why, as you can see, the overall fees for the same, the fees is 9,000 compared to, let's say, a CM1 or a CM2 or a CP1, where the fees are almost 25, 30,000. The fees out here is 9,000. They will cover the paper. You will get all these materials, so that this can be, you working in the right direction. Your direction is proper. And then majorly we'll focus on the paper solving, where I'll keep, pointing up your mistakes over and over again, so that you see a steady growth in your way of writing this paper. Fair enough. So yeah, I think that covers everything that I had to mention, and that is like the overall plan for the next 3 months. And what else I'll say about CP3? So even in the course notes you read, the only thing that, even the CP3 course note says, that even in the course notes they have mentioned that you might have heard from your friends that this is a very easy paper, but please do not live under that impression. Even in course notes they have mentioned. So ensure its paper is easy in terms of efforts. Okay, at max you have to write 2 papers in a week, which is 7-8 hours in a week. That's it. Okay, so efforts wise it is easy, I understand, but that, it's paper at the end of the day, writing an exam and clearing, it's still as tough as all the other exams. Okay. So ensure you do not, take things lightly. Okay, so I think that's majorly it from my end, and accordingly, I can stop the recording right now. Post this, let's discuss the timings and let's discuss how should we proceed ahead with the batch. Okay,